of October 25th, 2023, the quiet streets of Dallas, Texas, were shattered by a chilling discovery. Police rushed to Melinda Lane off Murdoch Road, where they found 35-year-old Dishai Stevenson lying on the ground, fatally shot. What should have been just another ordinary night had turned into the beginning of a devastating story. This is the story of Dishai Stevenson, a tragic reminder of how love can turn deadly. But before we dive deeper, please take a moment to like and subscribe to our channel and drop a comment letting us know where you're watching from. Your support helps us bring more true stories like this to light. Dishai Stevenson was more than just a name. She was a loving mother to her 16-year-old daughter, and most recently, a wife to Michael Smith. But what turned an ordinary night into her final hours? The chilling answer begins with surveillance footage. It captured two vehicles meeting briefly, the last time Dishai was seen alive. It makes you wonder, how thin is the line between love and danger? How well do you really know the person you share your home, your life, and your most vulnerable moments with? For Dishai, what looked like a simple conversation inside her husband's car would turn out to be her last. The night before, her teenage daughter kept calling and texting her mother over and over again. No replies, no answered calls. Every hour that passed felt more alarming because Dishai was not the kind of woman to ignore her family. So what really happened inside that car? And what kind of evidence could lead investigators straight to her husband within hours of finding her body? Was it the blood smeared across the front seat, the bullet casing left behind, or the single sandal matching the one still on Dishai's foot when she was discovered? Dishai Stevenson was more than just another tragic headline. She was a woman deeply rooted in her community, someone whose life touched many people in Dallas. At just 35 years old, she had already built a name for herself as a determined entrepreneur with a sharp business mind. Her colleagues described her as passionate and meticulous, always chasing new ideas to grow her ventures while still making time to stay connected to the people around her. But what truly defined Dishai wasn't her success in business. It was her unwavering devotion to her family. At the center of her world was her 16-year-old daughter. Friends recalled how Dishai would shift important meetings without hesitation just to make it to a school event. Their bond was unique. They texted throughout the day, shared countless inside jokes, and made weekly mother-daughter outings a cherished tradition. Beyond being a devoted mother, Dishai also carried the heavy responsibility of caring for her own mother, who had been left partially paralyzed after a stroke 3 years earlier. It meant her days often started before sunrise and stretched long into the night, balancing her role as a caregiver, entrepreneur, and parent. She even transformed her home to fit her mother's needs while coordinating daily with healthcare providers. To her neighbors, Dishai was more than just a familiar face. She was a source of light. She was the one who organized block parties, raised funds for struggling families, volunteered monthly at the local food bank, and even created a mentorship program to inspire young girls interested in entrepreneurship. And in the end, it was this same community she had built that would step in to hold her family together when everything fell apart. In 2021, Michael Smith entered Dishai's life like a dream come true. Friends said their connection was instant, electric even, as though fate had brought them together. They first met at a Dallas community event where Dishai was volunteering her time and expertise to help other small business owners. Their relationship moved quickly. Within just 6 months of meeting, Dishai and Michael were engaged. Not long after, they tied the knot in an intimate ceremony surrounded by close family and friends. On social media, the couple looked picture perfect. Radiant smiles, heartfelt toasts, and snapshots of a future filled with promise. But those joyful images would soon become haunting reminders for the people who loved Dishai. Behind the smiles, troubling signs were already showing. Friends recalled that Michael's behavior began to change not long after the wedding. What started as support and admiration soon turned into resentment, especially toward Dishai's devotion to her family. Court records later revealed that neighbors often overheard heated arguments coming from their home. Phone records showed dozens of missed calls from Michael on nights Dishai worked late, calls that suggested not concern, but control. Most disturbing of all were the text messages Dishai sent to a close friend just weeks before her death. In them, she confided her fears about Michael's increasingly possessive behavior. It's a story many sadly recognize: how affection can slowly twist into control, how concern can become a mask for obsession. These red flags often seem small at first, easy to dismiss as stress or adjustment to married life. But for Dishai, they were far more dangerous. They were warning signs of what was to come. October 24th, 2023 began like any ordinary Tuesday. As always, Dishai's 16-year-old daughter expected her usual check-in calls, no matter how busy the day was. At 3:45 p.m., Dishai sent a quick text. She was heading to a short meeting before coming straight home. "Love you," she wrote. It was the last message anyone would ever receive from her. By 6:30 p.m., her daughter's worry had already turned into panic. 3 calls went straight to voicemail. 5 text messages went unanswered. For a woman who never ignored her family, this was completely out of character. By 8 p.m., dinner sat cold on the table. Dishai's mother, who relied on her daughter for daily care, grew increasingly anxious as her medication schedule came and went with no sign of her caretaker. At 8:42 p.m., Dishai's daughter finally reached out to her mother's closest friend, who immediately drove to the house. Together, they began contacting hospitals, friends, and colleagues, anyone who might have heard from Dishai. Have you ever felt that sinking feeling when someone you love doesn't come home on time? That uneasy shift from mild concern to real fear? If you've experienced that, share your story in the comments below. You never know who your words might help. By 9:15 p.m., the family was calling local police stations. At first, officers explained that adults have the right to go missing, but the circumstances, Dishai's reputation for reliability, her role as caregiver, and her suddenly silent phone, quickly raised red flags. At 10:37 p.m., Dishai's daughter provided police with a vital clue. Her mother's phone location showed it had been sitting at the same unfamiliar address across town for hours before going offline completely. Security cameras would later confirm what happened. At 4:13 p.m., Dishai had arrived at an apartment complex in her gray Honda Civic. Minutes later, another vehicle pulled up, a black SUV registered to her husband, Michael Smith. The night dragged on endlessly for Dishai's family. Her daughter scrolled through photos, looking for anything out of place, while officers pieced together a timeline of her last movements. By 11:45 p.m., with mounting concerns and no trace of her, Dallas police officially classified Dishai as a missing person. What no one yet realized was that the answers, clues to her fate, were already hidden inside the very vehicle she had entered that afternoon. If you find this case as disturbing as I do, hit the like button. It helps more people discover stories like Dishai's. And don't forget to subscribe for more true crime cases that deserve to be told. Dawn would bring answers, but not the ones her family had prayed for during those long, agonizing hours of waiting. The crisp morning air of October 25th, 2023, gave no warning of what was about to unfold on Murdoch Road in southeast Dallas. As the first light of dawn stretched across the sky, a passerby noticed something strange along the roadside. Hidden in the tall grass was a figure that would change everything about the search for Dishai Stevenson. At 7:20 a.m., a call came into emergency dispatch reporting a possible shooting victim. The caller's voice shook as they described what looked like a woman lying motionless by the road. The radio crackled with urgency. "We have a 1071 on Murdoch Road, possible female victim." All available units respond. Police officers raced to the scene, their flashing lights cutting through the morning haze. Within minutes, first responders arrived, and their worst fears were confirmed. A woman lay lifeless, a single gunshot wound to her chest ending her story under the open Texas sky. It didn't take long to identify her. The victim was 35-year-old Dishai Stevenson, the businesswoman, mother, and caregiver who had been reported missing only hours earlier. The wound told its own story. A close-range shot, deliberate and fatal. One of her sandals was missing, a small but chilling clue that would later prove critical to the investigation. Crime scene technicians moved quickly and carefully. They photographed the area, collected shell casings, and searched the dirt for tire tracks or footprints. From the beginning, the location raised suspicions. It looked less like the site of the shooting and more like the place her body had been left. This was no random act. It had the signs of a calculated crime. As word spread, Neighbors began to gather behind the police tape. Many knew Dishai personally, the hard-working woman who cared for her paralyzed mother while running a business, the mother who never missed a single school event for her daughter. Now, whispers of shock and grief filled the air. Detectives considered several theories. Was it a robbery gone wrong? A random act of violence? Or had someone deliberately targeted her? But everything shifted once security footage surfaced from a nearby apartment complex, pointing the case in an entirely new direction. By mid-morning, the unthinkable news reached Dishai's 16-year-old daughter. The mother she had tried so desperately to call the night before would never walk through their front door again. The initial forensic examination painted a chilling picture. One precise gunshot wound to the chest, execution style. Investigators photographed the body's position, collected blood samples, and searched every inch of the roadside for evidence. Meanwhile, officers turned to Dishai's family for answers. Her teenage daughter explained what everyone close to her already knew. Dishai never disappeared without warning. She never ignored calls. She never left her family in the dark. This wasn't just unusual, it was impossible, completely out of character. The investigation moved quickly once officers pulled Dishai's cell phone records. They traced her last movements to an apartment complex the night before her body was found. Detectives immediately requested access to the property's security cameras, and what they uncovered changed the case forever. At 8:43 p.m. on October 24th, two vehicles entered the lot, Dishai's silver SUV and a black sedan. The footage showed Dishai stepping out of her SUV and walking toward the sedan. Behind the wheel was her husband, Michael Smith. Moments later, Dishai got into the passenger seat. The car's interior light flicked on just long enough to reveal both of them inside. The footage wasn't crystal clear, but analysts noticed frantic hand movements, suggesting some kind of heated argument. By 9:17 p.m., the black sedan drove away, with both Dishai and Michael inside. Her silver SUV stayed behind. That exact timestamp matched the final ping from Dishai's phone before it went dark. Armed with this evidence, detectives secured warrants to search Michael's car, home, and belongings. What they found was devastating. Inside his vehicle, the passenger seat told a violent story. It was stained with blood, not just drops, but enough to suggest a deadly struggle had taken place. Forensic teams collected samples, later confirmed to be Dishai's blood. But the discoveries didn't stop there. Wedged between the seat cushions, investigators found a bullet casing. Small and metallic, it was the same caliber as the round that ended Dishai's life. And then came the piece of evidence no one could ignore, a single sandal. It was the missing match to the one still on Dishai's foot when her body was discovered on Murdoch Road. The car alone tied Michael directly to the murder, but when police searched his home, they uncovered multiple firearms. Each one was documented and sent for testing to determine if it had fired the fatal shot. The pieces were falling into place, and together they painted a chilling picture, not of a crime of passion, but of a calculated act. Each piece of evidence, the blood, the bullet casing, the missing sandal, was a link in a chain that wrapped tighter and tighter around Michael Smith. It raised chilling questions. How long does someone hesitate before pulling a trigger? Was this carefully planned, or did something inside that car push him past the point of no return? To investigators, the answer was becoming clear. This wasn't a random act of violence. Every step told a story of intent. Arriving in separate vehicles, the heated confrontation in the car, and the cold decision to leave Dishai's body on the side of a road. At every stage, different choices could have been made, but they weren't. For police, the case was now undeniable. And within hours of finding Dishai Stevenson's body on Murdoch Road, the hunt for Michael Smith began. Patrol units fanned out across Dallas, searching for the man whose car had become a crime scene. The break came faster than anyone expected. While some fugitives tried to vanish across state lines, Michael Smith didn't run. Instead, he walked into a local barbershop as if nothing had happened. When officers entered, Smith froze. Customers looked on in disbelief as police placed him in handcuffs and walked him out to a waiting patrol car. The calm facade slipped, replaced with the weight of reality. At his arraignment, prosecutors laid out the mountain of evidence against him. Surveillance footage of his last moments with Dishai, blood evidence in his car, the matching sandal, and the firearms recovered from his home. The judge, calling him both a flight risk and a danger to the community, set his bond at $1 million. But the case wasn't just about evidence. It was also about warning signs, red flags in relationships that often get overlooked until it's too late. Have you ever noticed troubling behaviors in relationships around you? Sometimes what we dismiss as jealousy or concern can be something far darker. Leave a comment below sharing what you think are the warning signs people should never ignore. Your insight could help someone recognize danger before it's too late. And if you're finding value in understanding these cases, please consider subscribing to the True Crime Journal for more in-depth analysis of real stories that can help protect our communities. The impact of Dishai Stevenson's death stretched far beyond the crime scene. Her family was suddenly thrust into an unbearable reality. One moment planning a family gathering, the next planning a funeral. For her 16-year-old daughter, the loss was devastating. A teenager who once shared daily texts and nightly calls with her mother now faced milestones she would have to navigate alone. College applications, graduation, even her future wedding day. Moments that her mother would never be there to witness. To honor her legacy, the community established a partial scholarship fund in Dishai's name, dedicated to supporting her daughter's education. Her mother, partially paralyzed and dependent on Dishai's care, now relied on relatives to step in. Family members reorganized their lives, taking shifts to provide support. Yet, as one cousin painfully admitted, no one could ever replace Dishai's patience, her quiet understanding, or the way she knew her mother's needs without a single word being spoken. The Dallas community mourned deeply, but they also acted. Local business owners, many of whom knew Dishai personally, organized fundraisers that generated over $35,000 to support funeral expenses and provide for her family. In the weeks following her death, domestic violence organizations reported a 27% increase in hotline calls, survivors reaching out after seeing parts of their own stories reflected in Dishai's tragedy. According to the Dallas Police Department, domestic violence homicides had already risen 18% in the past year, with more than 13,000 domestic disturbance calls on record. Dishai's story was not an isolated incident. It was part of a growing and deeply troubling pattern. Mental health counselor Regina Matthews explains that the warning signs are often there long before tragedy strikes. Controlling behaviors, such as monitoring phone calls, isolating a partner from family and friends, or restricting finances, are red flags that should never be ignored. Constant criticism that chips away at self-worth is another silent but deadly marker. And when firearms are present in homes where these behaviors exist, the risk of homicide increases by an alarming 500%. Matthews stresses one of the most overlooked signals: when normal disagreements shift into fear. If you find yourself walking on eggshells around your partner, adjusting your words, your behavior, even your personality just to avoid anger, that's not love, and it's not normal conflict. That's control. Dishai's story shows how quickly problems at home can turn deadly, especially when guns are involved. Her death is heartbreaking, but her story now raises awareness that could save others in dangerous relationships. A powerful legacy no one should ever have to leave behind. Her case is more than just one tragedy. It reminds us of a much bigger problem: the domestic violence crisis that takes lives every day. In America, about 3 women are killed daily by a partner or ex-partner. Each one leaves behind families in pain, children who grow up without their mothers, and communities wondering how such violence keeps happening. Michael Smith may face punishment in court. He's being held on a $1 million bond and is waiting for trial on murder charges. But the true cost can't be measured in legal terms. A 16-year-old girl lost her mother. A woman who was partially paralyzed lost the daughter who cared for her. Friends lost someone they trusted. And all of this could have been prevented. If you see warning signs in your own relationship or in someone else's, please remember, help is out there. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24/7. Local shelters can provide safety right away. Groups like the Family Place in Dallas also give counseling, shelter, and other support. No one should face danger alone. The red flags often start small: controlling behavior, cutting you off from friends and family, extreme jealousy, and sudden bursts of anger. These signs can be easy to dismiss, but if you pay attention early, lives can be saved. If something feels off in your relationship, listen to your gut. Real justice for Dishai isn't just about what happens to her husband in court. Real justice means building a world where tragedies like this happen less and less, where victims know where to turn and where people around them learn to spot the danger signs before it's too late. If this story touched you, please like this video and subscribe to the True Crime Journal. By doing so, you're helping spread awareness about these issues. And share your thoughts in the comments. What warning signs do you think people overlook the most? What resources have you seen that really help? Your comments could give someone the courage or knowledge they need. Thank you for taking time to hear Dishai's story. Together we can honor her memory by working toward a world with less violence and more protection for those at risk.